RI, and then Rhode Islands talking about what are we going to do? What are some of the components and how can you involve? Right.
So I'm actually going to describe to you in more detail what the Shoreline Change Special Area Management Plan, or the beach SAMP, will actually attempt to do. And Grover will chime in if I miss something. As Jen mentioned, we plan that this project will, because it's a statewide project, will probably last 3 to 4 years. And we're just starting it now. And as John and Brian already mentioned, they've started on the research, and we've started talking with many of you about the project and getting your feedback. But this will be a long-term project because it's a big issue and we have lots to cover. But we hope to involve people as much as possible and obtain your input as much as possible. We're still fundraising for this project, but we have started and we're going to ramp up as we continue to receive funding for it. Overall, the goal of this project is, through a public process, help to develop innovative and practical policies and tools for protecting and managing development along the shorelines of Rhode Island that are vulnerable to erosion as well as inundation. An inundation from both sea level rise and storm surge events, and the combination of both of them. As I mentioned, this is going to be probably a 3 to 4 year project, and at the end of it, our long-term outcomes for the project are going to be that the state has strong erosion and inundation policies that are both publicly supported and implemented at both the state and local level. So as Grover always says, Rhode Island has strong erosion and flooding related policies already, but since times are changing, we need to keep up with that to continue to protect Rhode Island from these impacts. We also want to make sure that the best available information and tools are supporting sound decision making at both the local and state level. And we want this improved understanding of what the potential effects of erosion and inundation from sea level rise and storm surge to spill over to other planning initiatives. There's a lot of other activities going on in the state, and we really hope to the beach SAMP will be a clearinghouse for all of that information that's being collected by Department of Health, by DEM, by DOT. This is a long-range effort, and we hope that this project will be kind of a funneling point where all of that information can be combined into one. If some of you have been involved in special area management plans before, but these are regulatory documents under the jurisdiction of CRMC, and they've been developed around the state for different areas, and this one is looking at particular issues related to the whole coastal zone in the state. We want to follow these basic principles throughout the process, involving all stakeholders, maintaining transparency throughout the process so that you all know what's going on. You're learning about things as we figure them out. We're using the best available science, so we have a lot of new research that's going to be included in the beach SAMP. We want to acknowledge the existing uses that are out there and then plan for this changing future. And that in order for this plan to be useful over time, it needs to adapt. So adaptive management is something really key with all of the special area management plans, and this one in particular. when I describe the beach SAMP project to people, I like to kind of break it down into 3 different sections. The first is this collection of new research. So we have a bunch of new research projects we'll talk about in a second. The second is the development of the actual SAMP document, which is a regulatory document. So that's the policy development scope. And then third is having an extensive public education and outreach campaign. So more so than any other management plan that the university and CRMC have worked on together, this one affects so many people living along the coast, living in coastal communities, that we want to get as many people involved as possible, as many groups, and we're fundraising to make sure that we can reach people in different ways, which I'll describe in a second. This is kind of an organizational chart. It's basically the team of people that we have that will be working on the beach SAMP. So the beach SAMP is all under CRMC, the Coastal Resources Management Council's authority. And Grover is the project manager for the project. But we partner at the university with CRMC, and we coordinate the stakeholder engagement and education and policy development scope, as well as the research and data acquisition. So under the stakeholder engagement and policy development category, we have a bunch of different working groups, stakeholder groups, which is all of you here tonight, municipal advisory boards and town manager working groups. We have advocacy and environmental groups that we're planning on meeting with, a special advisory board with other federal and state agencies that are involved with these issues, as well as technical advisors that have specific expertise on issues that we're going to be addressing. The research and data acquisition, John and Brian discussed a little bit about some of the research that we'll be doing. It will include creating shoreline change and erosion mapping efforts, as well as inundation maps for what areas will be affected by both different scenarios of sea level rise, as well as storm surge events, and the two combined. But in addition to that research, we also plan to do an economic assessment that looks at what are the costs of all of these issues, what are the costs of rebuilding over time, and how can we wrap our head around that. We have a legal analysis that's looking at the different tools and techniques that have been used in different areas of the country or the world to deal with these issues, and how do they relate to what we're experiencing here in Rhode Island. And that will be done in partnership with Roger Williams University Law School. We also plan to have an engineering component where we look at different techniques for managing and adapting to the dynamics of shoreline change. So in addition to those two big buckets, we have a group of senior project advisors that are going to advise us on specific topic areas, as well as a group of community leaders, which are people that are out in your communities, that have different groups that they work with, they have constituents that can help us reach a wide range of audiences, whether they be realtors or insurance agencies or nonprofit groups. These impacts and issues need to be talked about with a wide range of people, and so we hope this group of community leaders will help us do that. As I mentioned, we have a lot of different research and data collection components to the beach SAMP. We'll be doing shoreline change, erosion, and inundation mapping, as well as creating a monitoring technique that we can use over time to track these changes. doing an economic assessment, a legal analysis of different types of development schemes, what are other people using, and an engineering evaluation of tools and techniques. This isn't the clearest photo, but this is online for you to look up later, as will this entire presentation. But as I mentioned, this is a statewide project. We're kind of focused a little bit now on the South Shore and Block Island because that's the first zone that we're looking at. But this management plan will span the entire state. So in the first couple of years, it will be the South Shore and Block Island, then we'll move into Narragansett Bay, and then into the Sakonnet and Aquidneck Island area. So we do it in this way so that it's a little bit more manageable, but all of the state will be included in the project area at the completion. The policy development scope, as I mentioned, we're developing an actual regulatory document that includes both synthesizing all the findings of fact, which are the scientific research findings, synthesizing that, and then from that building policies out of them. So policies are really rooted in science in all of the SAMP documents. And we hope that this document can incorporate all of these other state initiatives done by the Department of Health, DEM, statewide planning, because this project will probably have the longest scope. In the end, we may create new or amend current CRMC policies and standards depending on how the analysis plays out. And we hope to provide recommendations for other state agencies as well as local officials on what we learned, what's going to make sense, what can we take away from the process. All of the SAMPs that we've done in coordination with CRMC and the university follow basic stages. And currently we're in this step 1, which is issue identification, where we talk to all of you and we get your feedback about what are the things that we need to think about as we're doing the SAMP, which is part of the reason why we want you to fill out that yellow survey, because we want to make sure we're addressing the issues that you all think are important. And then we can take the science and prepare the document and then give it back to you to review, to give us your feedback before it's formally adopted by CRMC. As I mentioned, the education and outreach component of this project is going to be extensive, and we have a plan to have it be a multimedia type strategy that involves various different communication tools, web pages, fact sheets, social media, library lecture series, regular stakeholder meetings like this. We're going to use that group of community leaders to reach a different audience and get the message out. We hope to create different videos or eco-histories that make the connection between these changes and like the personal experience of living on the coast. So I'm sure some of you can remember when 30 years ago the beach was all the way out there and now it's lapping at your feet. So that's the kind of personal connection, those anecdotes, those stories that make this issue real for all of us, and that it's not something we need to just worry about in the future, it's something we need to think about now. We also would love to create a handbook or a guide, something for people who live along the coast that are living with this changing shoreline. What can you do based off of that? I'm going to stop talking, but we have a website and we're going to keep we'll put up all this information. We're going to keep putting up information, and I encourage you all to visit it and get involved, because we really want your feedback and input You can always contact me, that's my email address. Maybe not the cell phone number like Jen said, but whatever. But we really want your feedback. And Gerber, I don't know, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I'd just like to sort of add in a few points here. This is really a planning exercise. Michelle's referred to the regulatory side, and we do have regulations which may end up changing out of this, but this is really a planning exercise that we're going through. We're trying to look at what the projected change might be, what the span of that change might be in terms of the various estimates that might be out there, so that we can have some sort of certainty associated with those. And then, based on that, to start looking at planning scenarios that we can start to hopefully put in place. So this is really a planning exercise, and it's first and foremost, we have to work hand in hand with municipalities and the other state agencies that are involved. So this is really meant to be a coordinating effort also to bring the municipalities and the state agencies which have various policies that spill over into this as part of this process. So it has to be a team effort. This is a huge issue for Rhode Island, a huge issue. I wish I could say here today that in 3 years we're going to have 300 feet of beach bank. We're not. I wish I could say today that at the end of this, you're all good the next storm. We're not. We're going to get the crap kicked out of us if we have a 38 event. That's just plain and simple. The issue is when after that event occurs, or as we're building up to that event, can we put measures in place that will reduce our level of exposure and cause us to bounce back faster? That's what the purpose of this exercise is. It's to help us figure out for the long-term future, what are the decisions that we can make today that will give us a better future later on? Because we're just waiting for our Jersey event to come to us. Think this, New Jersey lost 350,000 homes. That's almost Rhode Island losing every home that it had and having to rebuild again. That's the magnitude of the event that New Jersey's going through right now. And so we need to plan for that. We need to be ready for that. And we need to start making smart decisions now that will reduce our exposure. We have a lot of infrastructure at risk. We have roads. We have sewage treatment plants. The Newport water supply was within a foot of getting overtopped and gone. So these are the types of things that we need to think about and start planning for and reacting to and starting to build differently so that we can go forward for a better future. That's the intent of this plan. It's going to be a very ambitious effort. We are going to benchmark ourselves across the best the systems that we can find in the world that are looking at this issue now, and we're going to try to learn from those and adapt them where we can to our scale here. So it's an effort that all of us need to participate in. It's for our future, and it's something that, as Rhode Islanders, we've been able to do before. I mean, look at the ocean SAMP. It is a national model for every other state to follow. And there's no reason why this plan can't be the same. So that's what we're hoping. That's what we need your help to help us shape this plan so it becomes a national model for everybody else.
Robert, as you've said, both of you, Michelle, said that this will include the latest science.